Ladies and gentlemen, we are live on all streaming platforms, whether it's YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter tonight. Championship rings. Brandon Lewis, host of Brand's World, host of Ungar to the Max, Josh Ungar. Josh, today was one of those days that news just kept popping off everywhere. We're going to get to a lot of that news later in the show, but you know, there was a lot of interesting football games this weekend. We have our opinions on both. We're going to get right to it. As always, subscribe to the Championship Rings YouTube channel here, Championship Rings 216. Follow us on our other social media platforms. We're on Twitter or X at Rings Champion. We're on Instagram at Rings Champion, and we're on Facebook at Rings Champion 216. Mr. Unger, I feel somewhat bad for Buffalo Bills fans because I feel like this was their shot to beat the Chiefs in the postseason. We both talked about it. We both liked Buffalo going into the game. And, you know, Buffalo reverted back to, in my opinion, the 6-6 Buffalo Bills, the Buffalo Bills that were run under offensive coordinator Ken Dorsey, as opposed to Joe Brady. Very conservative play calling. Josh Allen completed 16 passes behind the line of scrimmage. I thought Buffalo outplayed Kansas City in the first half, though I thought in the second half you could just tell they were scared to death, in my opinion, of giving the ball back to Patrick Mahomes.
I don't get it. Like, the Bills all season were so focused on, we've got to get this game out of Kansas City and bring it to Buffalo. That'll make the difference. And yet, they got it in Buffalo, and here we are. Same result. Buffalo is able to beat Kansas City in the regular season, but when it comes to the postseason, they simply can't do it. I'm going to say it. The Kansas City Chiefs are the Buffalo Bills playoff kryptonite. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, and I did not understand from the Buffalo perspective why they only ran it 12 times with James Cook after they dominated in the run game up to this point. We know their defense defensively, they didn't have a ton of linebackers. They were short-handed there. Obviously, we always saw Travis Kelce dominate early. But even then, you know, I feel like Buffalo for most of the game outplayed Kansas City, and then for whatever reason, and supposedly it was a call on the field by the players, the fake punt to Damar Hamlin felt like it completely flipped the game. Now,
yeah, that was stupid. I did not get that call at all. You're on your own. I think they were on their own, like, 30-yard line or whatever. Yep. And you go for the fake punt. You don't get it. You give Patrick Mahomes a short field, and it just made no sense.
Now, this is mostly what I wanted to address about in this game was the sequence after, which of course featured the McCall Hardman fumble out of the back of the end zone. There's a lot of conversation about the fact that the rule, which is obviously if an offensive player fumbles the ball out of the back of the end zone, it's a touchback. A lot of the offensive players don't love that rule. And I may be in the minority here, but I actually like the rule, and I actually think the rule makes sense, and I actually think it's fair. No. If you fumble the ball out of the back of the end zone, it's not like it's going, in the sideline in play. It's out of the back of the end zone. It's the same thing where on a kickoff, if it goes out of the back of the end zone, it's a touchback. I think basically if you fumble the ball out of the back of the end zone, it is a turnover. It should be a touchback, and it should be the opposing team's football at the 20-yard line. You have to reward the defense in some capacity. You cannot just put the ball at the 1-yard line or whatever you want to put it, because then there really is no consequence for the offense, in my opinion.
Isn't it ironic that this rule comes up again with the Kansas City Chiefs? It's so ironic because if you go back to, I believe it was the 2020 AFC Divisional Round, in Kansas City. Rashard Higgins is reaching the ball over the goal line. Dan Sorensen hits him right in the head. First of all, that should have been targeting. And it looks like my screen froze again. Oh, there we go.
You're better. Keep rolling.
But so that should have been targeting. But
there is no targeting in the NFL, Josh. You guys are still crying about it 3 years later. You sound like me and what I'm going to say in the Super Bowl. The Eagles don't get it back there. Anyway, regardless, Buffalo then had another opportunity. Josh Allen goes from the 10-yard line to essentially the 20-yard line of Kansas City on a rope to Stephon Diggs, one of the best throws you'll ever see. Unfortunately, Diggs dropped it. It's right in the hands. I thought Buffalo, again, I thought they played up tight in the second half. And you said it. They are Kansas City's kryptonite, or Kansas City is their kryptonite, I should say. Buffalo has their number in the regular season, though they do not in the postseason. And unfortunately for Bills fans, the Chiefs are moving on.
Yes. I'm going to say it, though. I think the Bills' championship window is closed.
So you think it's completely closed?
Yep.
I think as long as they have Josh Allen, it's not going to be completely close.
I do.
Listen, we know what this league's about. It's about quarterbacks, weapons, offensive line, defensive line. Buffalo still has great quarterback. We can all acknowledge Josh Allen is a great quarterback. I'm not here to give Josh Allen any slander. I thought Josh Allen played a really good game. As a matter of fact, I thought he outdueled Mahomes for most of the game. Stephon Diggs, I know they didn't use him that much throughout the rest of the season. Diggs is still a great weapon. Dalton Kincaid is an excellent tight end that's going to be around for years to come. Shakir is a great slot receiver. James Cook, a very good running back. Whether they retain Gabe Davis or not is yet to be seen, but the foundation is still there. I think they definitely need to improve a little bit on the offensive line. Deion Dawkins, good left tackle. They have some good interior players. Mitch Morris at center. I think guard and maybe another right tackle. Defensively, Von Miller was not healthy the whole year. He did make some impact plays in the postseason, especially in that Steeler game. Their secondary is still very good. Hyde and Poyer as well. Tre'Davious White was not in the game. He was injured, obviously. Buffalo still has many pieces. The question's going to be when and if can they get over that Kansas City hump?
I'm wondering something. I heard this the other day. Sean McDermott has gotten them from point A to point B. But
I not bring this up a couple weeks ago when we were talking about Buffalo and McDermott? I said they did not look the same after Brian Daboll left. And I said after watching the Cincinnati game that I would have thought about firing Sean McDermott after that game. But to McDermott's credit, I'll say this. He fired Ken Dorsey, which most head coaches would not do during the season. They righted the ship. I think, and I told you this last week, defensive head coaches now can clearly win if you have a great offensive coordinator and a great quarterback. I think McDermott's a very good coach. Unlike last year, I don't feel as bad about the way they watched this year as opposed to last year when Cincinnati just ran up and down the field on him. I would give McDermott one more year, and if it's topsy-turvy again next year, I think you let him go. But I think McDermott, at this point, saved his job with the firing of Dorsey and the transition to Joe Brady.
I heard something interesting the other day on, I think it was Get Up. They were talking about how Sean McDermott, like we were just saying, has been able to get the Bills to from point A to point B, but he hasn't been able to get them from point B to point C. And one of them, I forget who it was, mentioned the idea of what if Bill Belichick were to go in?
Oh no.
I'm not saying I agree with I'm not saying I agree with it, but I felt like it was worth mentioning that idea.
Buffalo would not move on McDermott to go get Bill Belichick. I am surely confident in that.
Okay.
Okay. Well,
What about wait? Here's an idea. Mike Vrabel is still available.
I would prefer Sean McDermott to Mike Vrabel. I don't think Vrabel's a great coach. I've said it here for the last 2 weeks. I don't think Vrabel's Tennessee teams were that good. I think every single year under McDermott they've been better teams. The only year they got to the AFC Championship game was because Ryan Tannehill had a career freaking year and they ran the ball down Baltimore's throat.
Okay, fair enough. But going back to the idea of Buffalo's window being shut, you look at what's going on in the AFC. Baltimore is still going to be around. Miami, if they can get their stuff together, they're still going to be around. The Chargers, if this Jim Harbaugh news turns out to be true of them bringing him in as their head coach, you've got Justin Herbert, you've got Keenan Allen, you've got Austin Eckler, you've got Mike Williams, Quentin Johnson. So the Chargers are going to be a factor. Obviously, Kansas City. Joe Burrow is going to come back and be healthy, so there's another team right there. Jacksonville is presumably going to bounce back. Houston is going to be a factor. I would say Indianapolis needs to be mentioned in the conversation. The Browns with a healthy Deshaun Watson, presumably. So with all those teams, I don't know where Buffalo fits into the equation. So as of right now, I'm saying yes, I think the Bills' window is closed.
We got to move on. We got to talk about this game that happened on Saturday night. A game that, oh my God, I can't believe the outcome of this game. Josh, at the start of this season, when I told you that in order to build a roster in the National Football League, there were 3 picks that I would be making, not player, I'm not in a position to start my franchise in the NFL, I would make. And I made the argument to you. My first pick would be a quarterback, and my next pick would be a damn kicker. Because all of these games, not only did the Buffalo game come down to a kick, but Green Bay, I'm sorry, San Francisco, I don't want to hear it. You were pretty much beat. And then Carlson goes on and misses that kick. And Brock Purdy finally went on a game-winning drive. Brock Purdy was by far the worst quarterback. We saw 8 quarterbacks play this week in the National Football League. Out of all 8 of them, San Francisco easily had the worst quarterback on the field, got away with 2 interceptions. One of them should have been a pick at the 6, and Darnell Savage would have caught the ball. You know how I feel about San Francisco. You know I don't like them. Oh my God, they lost Deebo Samuel. Their whole offense is out of whack. They are lucky to win this game. You see it on the screen here. They survived against the Packers because that's exactly what they did. Because they made arguably lucky plays in the second half. And I thought Green Bay outplayed them for 3 3/4 quarters.
So I didn't get to watch a lot of this game because I was working the Monsters game the same night, but I was able to catch like the tail end of the third quarter and all of the fourth quarter. Yeah, Green Bay had this game won, and I don't know what Jordan Love was thinking on that last drive. That is one of the biggest cardinal sins. If you have to escape the pocket like he did, you do not throw it back across your body towards the middle of the field. 99 times out of 100, it is going to get intercepted. And that's exactly what happened. But like we were saying in the first segment with Kansas City being Buffalo's playoff kryptonite, you could say the same thing about San Francisco for Green Bay, because the last few times, including this game, of course, that San Francisco has played Green Bay in the playoffs, San Francisco has walked out with the win.
They did, except the last two times I believe were both blowouts, and this one was really close. And as we keep mentioning, Green Bay pretty much had the game won. And I agree with you. Yeah, Jordan Love shouldn't have made that throw, but he's a young quarterback. He did exactly what Brett Favre did in the 2009 NFC Championship game when he was a Viking against the Saints. And it happens. He's going to learn. I think Green Bay had a great season. But I think the story here that really, a lot of people don't want to talk about is just how bad San Francisco was offensively for most of the game, and especially when Deebo Samuel went out. And their pass rush did not get home to Jordan Love and the Packers a lot. They gave up over 100 yards rushing to Aaron Jones. I'll tell you this, we're about to get into Detroit and Tampa, which I can't wait to dive into. But it makes me feel better if I'm a Lions fan going into San Francisco because I think the Niners are beatable. I don't think that they're the best team in the NFL. I don't think Brock Purdy is this great quarterback. I think he's carried by a great cast, and I think he can make, one or two very good throws a game. But there was at least, as I said, 2 or 3 times. It reminds me of the year when the Rams went to the Super Bowl and Matthew Stafford threw that interception to Jaquiski Tart in the NFC Championship game, and he just dropped the ball. Otherwise, the Niners with Jimmy Garoppolo would have gone to the Super Bowl that year. That's what it reminded me of here with Brock Purdy, because Brock Purdy had a lot of interceptable balls that just weren't caught, and that's why those defenders play defense and not wide receiver.
Right, I get that. But from what I'm hearing, you feel like Brock Purdy is a product of the parts around him.
Oh, I think you know what I think Brock Purdy is? I think he's Mac Jones with a better arm.
Interesting.
That I really do. And Mac Jones had a successful rookie year in New England. There was reports out there that Kyle Shanahan wanted to go draft Mac Jones, and John Lynch was the one who said, let's go with the upside. Let's go with Trey Lance. Which again, I thought Trey Lance could be better than what he was too coming out of North Dakota State. And the interesting thing is, and this has been buried all week long in the weed. I don't know if you heard about this. Reportedly, San Francisco told Brock Purdy he was going to be the backup this year because they wanted to convince Tom Brady to come out of retirement.
No, I did not hear about this.
Pro Football Focus reported it on Monday, and nobody really wanted to talk about it because all we were talking about is Brock Purdy had a game-winning drive and played the worst game out of any quarterback this whole weekend.
On that note, we'll get into, the other games here in a second, but if I had to rank like the top 5 quarterbacks from this weekend, I would say Lamar Jackson was 1. I loved the way Lamar played in that game against Houston. I would say Patrick Mahomes was good, but I wouldn't say he was top 3. I would say Jared Goff was number 2. I would say Baker Mayfield was number 3. And then I would go Jordan Love number 4. And then I would go Patrick Mahomes number 5.
Yeah, that's really hard. I'd have to sit and think about that one. Let's talk about your number 2 quarterback. Let's talk about Jared Goff and the Lions, who stave off the Buccaneers 31-23. Okay, I'm going to jump right to this. It is 31-23.
I already know what you're going to go to.
Tampa Bay had just scored a touchdown to get back in this ball game. And yep. I understand there's analytics behind it that, you have to score, and if you get the 2-point conversion, you can win the game on an extra point. And Josh, you know how I think. You know I'm offensively minded. You know how progressive I am when it comes to things like this. But I'm sorry. And I say this about the NBA. When it comes to the playoffs, analytically, the mid-range jumper is not a good shot. But guess what? In the playoffs, it's the best shot. Historically in the NBA, you can look it up. In the NFL playoffs, you can throw the analytics out the window. Take the situation of the game, the momentum with you. Tampa Bay should have absolutely kicked that extra point to make it a 7-point game. Now,
100%.
Now, by the way, I'll say this: if they had a better play call and they got it, and maybe you can talk me in the decision. But I have said this. I said it today on Brandon's World. I'll say it again right here. In my opinion, if I am an offensive coordinator of an NFL team, there is one play in my playbook I will never call, and that play is a goal line fade. I think it is the worst play in football. I think it's low percentage. I think it's a perfect throw and a perfect edge, and you get it maybe 2 times a year. So I would have came up with something different, but that's not the here nor there. What is the here nor there is what people don't want to talk about in this game, and we've talked about Ben Johnson a lot. We think he's going to get a head coaching job, but the Detroit Lions did not really win this game when they had the opportunity to do so. They could have ran the clock out. Instead, they were throwing it. They took a sack. There was incomplete passes. There was a huge drop by Amon-Ra St. Brown. Detroit could not put Tampa away, and they gave Baker Mayfield another opportunity. And Baker Mayfield did what Baker Mayfield always does, which is exactly why the Browns got rid of him. And nobody can see it. I'm here to tell you that is the reason why. Because in the big games and in the big moment when the game's on the line, Baker Mayfield will throw you the football on defense. And if you catch it, that's the season. And that is why the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going home, because Baker Mayfield made the worst read, and worse than a Brock Purdy read. He made the worst read of the whole weekend and threw it right to the Lions on the first or second play of the drive.
It was almost a similar throw to what Jordan Love did when he threw it back across his body. I would say it was just
Jordan Love threw it across his body. Baker Mayfield was standing right there in the pocket and threw it to him.
Okay, it looked similar to me. I'd have to go back and see it, but either way, sure, Baker Mayfield made that major mistake and it cost the Buccaneers the game, but you can't deny that Baker Mayfield stepped up to the plate.
No, I can deny it. I thought he played well. I didn't think he played a great game. I thought his best throw of the game was the second quarter throw right before halftime when he hit Mike Evans down on the 1 yard line, and Tampa was able to punch it in, and they made it a 10-10 game at the half. And we both said these Tampa Bay receivers match up very well against these Detroit corners because they don't have one. Detroit found 2 corners in the garbage can and told them to go start this year because Detroit has to go outscore people. When that game was 10-10, I thought the Lions were in trouble. When it was 17-17 going into the fourth quarter, I thought the Lions were in trouble. Then they gave it to Jahmyr Gibbs, who I don't understand why he didn't get more carries. Again, Detroit pulled away in the fourth quarter, but they could not put Tampa Bay away, and that's what worries me. I know we're going to preview here in about 7 minutes the NFC and AFC championships and give our predictions for the Super Bowl. The Lions, everybody knows I'm rooting for them. I think the whole freaking world is rooting for the Detroit Lions to have their first Super Bowl appearance, unless you're from San Francisco in franchise history. There's some things that worry me about the Lions. I like Ben Johnson. I don't think he's a great play caller consistently throughout games. And Jared Goff needs to have a clean pocket. When Tampa Bay started to get pressure, Goff started to struggle a little bit. But when Jared Goff has a clean pocket and the Lions have just as good of an offensive line as Philly, I would say they're the top 2 in the National Football League. When Jared is time to throw that football, he is lethal. And when Jared Goff is on time and on target, at games looks like a top 5 quarterback, not just a top 10, top 5 quarterback.
Okay. You said a lot there. Let me just say this. I know what I said a few months back about Jared Goff and the Lions' backup quarterback, Hendon Hooker, but let me just say this. I wouldn't take Jared Goff out of the starting lineup or anything like that because I know what Detroit has done offensively with Jared Goff at the controls. And we can get a little more into this when we preview the NFC Championship game. But I think the Lions need to sprinkle in a little bit of Hendon Hooker Just a touch. I'm not saying like put
What
him
are we
in
going to do? A Taysom Hill package?
something like that. Yeah, it gives.
It's not, that's the worst take I ever heard. You're going to take a top 5 quarterback and put him off the field? What are you doing?
For a play. I'm not saying
What's
for a
he
whole.
going to do? What is he going to do?
It gives the defense something to think, something else.
Jared Goff can run.
Not as much as
You
Hendon
act like
Hooker.
Jared Goff doesn't have mobility, dude. I mean, come on. We're not playing musical chairs.
Dude, I get it, Brandon. I do. But like you look at what Lamar did to the did to the 49ers defense.
Lamar Jackson is a different quarterback than everybody else in the league.
I'm not trying to compare Hendon Hooker.
You just said you look at what Lamar Jackson does, so yeah, you are.
You didn't let me finish.
Go on then, finish, because I'm waiting to tear this apart.
You look at what Lamar Jackson did to the 49ers defense. When he took off and ran, they had all kinds of issues with it.
Gee, maybe that's because Lamar runs 4-2.
Okay, fair enough. But go back and watch some of the film from when they faced other mobile quarterbacks. The 49ers defense, kind of like the Browns, struggled. So
by the way, Hooker's not even active. He's not even the backup. It's Teddy Bridgewater.
Well, there goes that take then.
Thank you. What kind of take is that? Oh, do you have anything else to say on this, or can we talk about an actual fast quarterback in Lamar Jackson?
Let's get to Lamar Jackson.
Let's get to Lamar Jackson, because the Texans, your boy, C.J. Stroud, didn't even muster an offensive touchdown. They put up a punt return for a touchdown and a field goal. This game was tied 10-10 at the half. A little bit surprised, in my opinion. But then Baltimore just came out and did what the Ravens do, crush people in the second half. Lamar Jackson proved once again why he should be this year's MVP and nobody else, and it ain't even a discussion. And the Baltimore Ravens, in my opinion, did what they've been showing for the last 2 months. Josh, we've talked about it how many times on this show. They blew out the Lions. They blew out the Niners. They blew out the Seahawks. You name them, outside of the Rams, who gave them a good game in Baltimore.
Don't forget they blew out the Dolphins, too.
They blew out the Dolphins. This team, who I think was, maybe a little rusty after they didn't play the starters against Pittsburgh and were off for a week, came out a little sluggish in the first half. Second half, they did Ravens things. Mike McDonald is probably going to get a head coaching job. He's been that good as a defensive coordinator. But this Baltimore Ravens team, they look scary good. They look as good as my Eagles did last year. Now, whether they can have the Super Bowl success that my Eagles have had and actually, cap it off, unlike what we did against Kansas City, that is to be seen. But I love this Ravens team, and I cannot wait to discuss AFC and NFC Championship and give our Super Bowl picks, because it's going to be fascinating, because I don't know which side I'm leaning towards in this Ravens-Chiefs matchup.
Oh, I know exactly which side I'm leaning towards in this.
You do? Okay.
Okay. Yeah, Lamar Jackson is just, I don't get it with him. Like, here's my thing. As a Cleveland Browns fan, I hate the Baltimore Ravens. For me, they are the biggest rival for the Browns. Not the Steelers, not the Bengals. It is the Ravens. But that being said, I love Lamar Jackson. I know I shouldn't, because again, I'm a Browns fan. But when Lamar Jackson is playing, you want to tune in. And you want to see what spectacular play is Lamar Jackson going to make today. Is he going to break away for a 50-yard touchdown run? Is he going to make some crazy jump pass? Is he going to convert a fourth down? Something like that. You want to tune in. But what I think makes this Ravens team so dangerous is that they have finally surrounded Lamar Jackson with good wide receivers and other skill position players. Zay Flowers, excellent draft pick there. Odell Beckham Jr. Isaiah Likely has done a very serviceable job filling in for Mark Andrews.
I would say more than serviceable. He looks like a top tight end in the league to me, what he's doing.
Let me ask you this. Again, we'll get to the AFC Championship in a minute. But do you think that the Ravens, if Mark Andrews is back to full health and able to play.
It sounds like he is.
Okay. Do you think the Ravens will do some 2 tight end sets and have them both out on the field?
Yeah, I mean they do it anyway. So I think it will certainly add to it. They're going to be in more 11 personnel than 12 personnel, more than likely. But it also will depend on how the game goes. And so with that in mind, let's start with the AFC. So we have the Chiefs going to Baltimore. And I told you going into the Buffalo game, because the same feeling I have about this game. I said I like the Bills, but you're giving Kansas City 2.5. I know what's going to happen. And exactly what happened is what happened. We're giving the Chiefs 3.5 points against the Baltimore Ravens. I told you, right? I'm going to tell you right now. I have already made my pick in FanDuel. I have made my pick. And I know I shouldn't do it because I have a feeling Kansas City is going to somehow win the game. But I think Baltimore's a better freaking team. I think the Ravens should win this game. I think the Ravens should cover. I think the Ravens have been the better team all year long. I think there's a chance they can blow Kansas City out of this game. But I know what's going to happen. It's Andy Reid. It's Patrick Mahomes. It's Taylor Swift. It's Jason Kelsey up there with his shirt off, banging in the chest in the booth. I know what's going to happen here. And the Kansas City Chiefs are probably going to break everybody in Baltimore's heart. And I know you, as a Browns fan, you're in a tough spot because you hate the Ravens and you hate the Chiefs. I get it. This is going to be a fascinating game, and I will take this one step further. I believe the winner of this game, I think you are watching essentially the Super Bowl, because I think the winner of this game will beat the winner in the NFC Championship game and will be crowned your Super Bowl 58 champion. But I got Baltimore, and I think it's going to be like 23-20. The over-under is 44.5, and I think it's going to be very close, whether that's over or under.
Yeah, I'm picking Baltimore in this game. I don't want the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl. They have become the darlings of the referees. Patrick Mahomes is way too freaking cocky, and he's in just about every other commercial on TV. And I don't want to see constant shots of, oh, what's Taylor Swift doing? No, I don't care.
Oh, come on. I think that's fun. Come on. You got to have a little fun, man. Come on. Karma is my boyfriend. Like, come on.
Oh, my God. No, I want Baltimore. And I know that I shouldn't be saying that as a Browns fan, but I am openly rooting for the Baltimore Ravens.
You can say whatever you want. It's your take. Say it with your chest.
I am openly rooting for the Baltimore Ravens this week. I do not want the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl. No, thank you. I want to see Lamar Jackson playing for all the marbles in the Super Bowl. That would just be unbelievable. And I also think it would be a really cool story if John Harbaugh goes on to win the Super Bowl. The fact that Jim Harbaugh won the national championship, and then John Harbaugh goes on to win the Super Bowl.
And isn't it fascinating that last year, the Jets essentially chose Aaron Rodgers over Lamar Jackson? The Falcons said, we don't need Lamar Jackson. We have Desmond Ridder.
Yay!
The Saints said, we don't need Lamar. We're going to go get Derek Carr and stick with a defensive coach and Dennis Allen, to name a few examples. And Baltimore, now I said this, I know we did not do a show at this time, so you don't really, I don't think, know my full take on this. I never believed Lamar was actually going to leave Baltimore.
Neither did I.
I think it was all sort of a marketing ploy, sort of a bidding war to get the price. Like Baltimore is not a dumb organization. They're very smart. They're classy. They're well run. They always have been. When you have John Harbaugh as your head coach, they're not moving off Lamar Jackson. So glad we both agree on that. How about the NFC? Lions are about. It depends on what book you're at. Some books have 7, some books have 6.5. Either way, San Francisco's favored. I think it all depends on if Deebo Samuel plays. And I don't think Deebo is the best wide receiver in the world, but for some reason, San Francisco's offense is based around a wide back, whatever the hell that is. I am going to say it. I've been saying it over with my chest here. We've been on the air for 35 minutes and 34 seconds approximately. How much I don't like the San Francisco 49ers. I think they need to be knocked in their teeth. I'm rooting for MCDC and that bright red nose and that bright red ear. But unfortunately, I think the San Francisco 49ers are going to win this game, though I will take the points with the Detroit Lions.
So you think the Super Bowl logo conspiracy theory is going to continue?
Yeah, I've been seeing that around the internet, and you know what? Next year it's Eagles Ravens. Who the hell knows? But I mean, listen, have these two teams probably been, Baltimore, we agree, has probably been the best team in football all year long. San Francisco, a lot of people thinking the NFC has been the best team all year long. I can make an argument for that. I think Detroit got lucky that both Dallas and Philadelphia got bounced out so early, but you know what? So be it. Detroit, they got 2 home playoff games. Jared back in his hometown state of California, he will not be cold. Jared Goff will have a good game in this game. The difference in this game is going to be how much pressure, I said this earlier, can Chase Young, Javon Hargrave, Nick Bosa, Javon Kinlaw, and that San Francisco 49er front get pressure on Jared Goff. And what can Aiden Hutchinson do to combat that against Brad?
You talk about how Jared Goff not being cold, he should be okay. But I think not being in the dome is going to make a difference for this Lions offense. I don't know if they're going to have the same explosiveness they've had these first 2 playoff games.
Yeah, no, it's a good point, but I do think history shows, again, Goff, he played with the Rams before they went into SoFi Stadium. He can play outdoors. It's just the cold. I get your point about the offense as a whole. Amon-Ra St. Brown may not be as good. It may have to be a Montgomery and Gibbs type game, but I want to make this clear. I am not concerned about Goff.
Oh, I'm not concerned about Goff specifically, but I am concerned about the offense as a whole, like not having the same level of explosiveness that we've seen from them these first couple games because they're not playing on their home turf. Like, when you're used to playing in a dome and you have to go outside, whether it's in a cold environment or not, I think it does change your offense and the way you play. So I do think it's going to, I don't want to say hinder Detroit, but I think it does make a difference. I think San Francisco's defense is better than what Detroit has seen so far from the Rams or the Buccaneers. And it will be San Francisco's defense that wins them this game, not San Francisco's offense.
So you like the Niners. Do you like them to cover?
To cover the spread? I'm going to say no. I don't think the 49ers cover the spread. I think the Lions will, despite what I was just saying, I think the Lions can keep this close, and it will come down to, I'm going to say it comes down to the final possession. I don't know who's going to have that final possession, but I just have this feeling that it comes down to the final possession and either a play gets made or it does not get made, and that's what allows the 49ers to go to the Super Bowl.
Well, we've seen four great teams in the NFL, but an NBA team has shockingly, for some reason, dismissed their coach. The Milwaukee Bucks have moved off Adrian Griffin as their head coach after only 43 games. They're 30-13, three and a half out of the best spot in the Eastern Conference. Josh, you've watched this team more closely than I have this season. What do you make of this move?
People are going to compare it to what the Cavs did in 2016 when they fired David Blatt and brought in Tyronn Lue. This is a totally different situation because what's probably going to happen is the Bucks are going to hire somebody outside of their coaching staff. The name I've heard is Doc Rivers.
It's a name I've heard as well.
We shall see if that in fact comes to fruition. But anyway, you look at what the Bucks have done so far this season, their defense has not been the same level it's been in the seasons past. We have not seen a lot of the Damian Lillard, Giannis Antetokounmpo pick and roll that we were expecting to see. And for some reason, it just hasn't quite felt right in Milwaukee all season. You know, they got the blowout win against the Boston Celtics like a week or two ago, but you can't take much from that game because the Celtics were on the second night of a back-to-back. They were playing their fifth game in 7 nights or whatever it was. So,
by the way, the Cavs just destroyed them last week by 50, and they will obviously get to see Milwaukee again tomorrow night. I agree with you on the Doc Rivers and David Blatt completely different situation thing. I was also wondering if by chance this is tampering by Doc Rivers. He's in a contract with ESPN. He's going to leave the booth in the middle of the season to go coach the Bucks. It sounds like he was advising Adrian Griffin as well. I also heard that Griffin did not connect with veteran players. Damian Lillard was struggling in his offensive scheme. So I guess it makes sense, though I think firing a coach mid-season or what's your name's LeBron when you do it every 2 years is weird. But I'll say this. We know in the NBA, coaching does not matter. Football coaching is a huge aspect. In the NBA, it matters a little bit when you get to the playoffs, but there are two kinds of coaches in the NBA. There's the coach that can coach a lot of young kids, and then there's the coach that can get you to a championship. And I don't think Adrian Griffin was the right fit for this team. Coach Bud was obviously not the right fit for this team. Doc Rivers does choke a lot in the postseason, so it'll be interesting if he can change that narrative around. He's basically Andy Reid, but the opposite, where Andy waited all those years to get a championship. Doc Rivers got the championship first in Boston before deciding to blow all those 3-1 leads, whether it was in Boston or Philly or the Clippers or any other place he's coached.
Yeah, I agree with you. I do hope Adrian Griffin gets another opportunity as a head coach, though.
Boy, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. When you get fired from that job, people are going to be like, what the hell happened with that guy?
I just think it was the wrong team at the wrong time.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I still think Milwaukee, now they're number 2 right now behind Boston. I've said it all year. I still think Milwaukee's the best team in the East. But they know, and this is a Milwaukee organization that went out and got Damian Lillard for Giannis because they did not want Giannis to either request a trade or leave via free agency.
Right.
They are committed to getting Giannis another NBA championship. Giannis, I think, is being more demanding and more aggressive as a superstar, which I like. And we know that the NBA is a players' league. So we'll see how this change affects the team moving forward. But, again, for this team, it's a lot like what I've said about Boston. It's what I've said about Denver and some of these other teams. The regular season for them is essentially practice. We will not know how good this Bucks team is or what the coaching change will mean until they get into a 7-game series in the postseason.
I agree with you. I do think I hear what you're saying, but I do think especially with the depth you have in the Eastern Conference this season, even though I think you and I agree that it's Boston, Milwaukee, and everybody else. But you look at some of those teams in the everybody else category. You've got Miami, Philadelphia, New York, Indiana, Cleveland. So there are some dangerous teams in there. So, like, in that regard, I would say the regular season does matter because it determines who plays who. It can also determine when does Boston play Milwaukee in the playoffs? When does Boston play Philadelphia? When does Milwaukee play Philadelphia? When does Milwaukee play Miami? So in that regard, I would say the regular season does matter.
And I hear you on that front. Well, last night in the NBA, on the same day that Kobe Bryant embarrassed Jalen Rose and dropped 81 points, we had two historic regular season performances, and I emphasize regular season. I'll get to that in a minute. Joel Embiid obviously putting up 70. Karl-Anthony Towns puts up 62 in a losing effort. Obviously, we have Jokic in there as well. You have Towns, you have Embiid. You have so many skilled big men in today's NBA. Really, the question is, Josh, is this the new era of the NBA?
I would say so. You look at the big man now in the NBA. You mentioned them, Jokic, Embiid. I would even throw Giannis in that discussion.
You could, though I was thinking more like 7 foot, the guys that actually play center. Victor Wembanyama, who obviously is a unicorn in its own right for San Antonio.
Okay, so if you want to go that route, I would include Porzingis in that discussion.
Porzingis?
Jared Allen to a lesser degree.
To a lesser degree. He's had a really good year for the Cavs, especially since Mobley's been out of the lineup.
Yes. He's not as much of a three-point shooter as, the likes of Embiid and Jokic, but, he's pretty skilled, but I love it now. Like, you have all these two-man games. I think Murray and Jokic are the best two-man tandem in the NBA right now. But, you look at Maxey and Embiid, that's intriguing, and you want to watch these matchups because it's Jokic against Embiid. Who's going to get the better of who? But I want to focus more on Embiid's performance from last night rather than Karl-Anthony Towns, because I want to talk about the message that I think Joel Embiid is sending to the rest of the Eastern Conference and maybe even the rest of the league. He does not care about winning league MVP this season. That's been his main goal over the past couple seasons, but just from the way he was playing, not just last night, but in general, he's like, screw the MVP. I want the championship.
It's the same attitude Jokic had last year.
Exactly.
So here's the thing. I want to talk about both of these performances because I know you're going to kill me on this take for this. But I believe in my heart of hearts, nobody is going to remember either one of these two performances if one or both of them flame out in the postseason, because it doesn't matter if you score 70 or 62 in a random night in January. I'd rather have you score 38 in a game 5 with the game on the line than score 62 and lose in January. The Minnesota Timberwolves right now, I believe they're the number 1 seed in the West. If not, they're right there in the Western Conference.
Yes, they are the number 1 seed in the West.
This is their best team they've had in years. Anthony Edwards and Karl-Anthony Towns are leading the charge. Philadelphia, I believe, is third in the East, right there with Boston and Milwaukee. Historically in the NBA, if you are not a top 3 seed in either conference, this is where, to your point about the regular season, it may not matter in terms of win-loss record, but historically seeding does matter. Because if you don't get a top 3 seed, you generally don't make it out of the second round. For both of these guys, for Minnesota, this is their best team they've had in probably our lifetime. And so they need to get, if you're the number one seed, if you're the Timberwolves, I don't care who you have to go through. You got to get to the conference finals. Philly, you got to get past Boston. You got to get past Milwaukee. And if Joel Embiid has a bad postseason or Karl-Anthony Towns has a bad postseason, no one is going to remember about the historic nights in January. Look at Donovan Mitchell last year, put up 75 points for the Cavs in a game. Who cares? They got bounced out early by the Knicks. Devin Booker put up 70-something in the bubble. Who gives a rip? It was in the bubble. It was a meaningless game. Do it on the biggest stage when 12 million people are watching, not a million or so people on your local NBA TV on a Monday night in January. Where, by the way, the league is so talented now that it is a lot easier to score. And in the playoffs, we don't get as many fouls. The referees are going to swallow the whistle. We get a lot more physical play. Scoring is down. Coaches are able to make adjustments. It's, as I keep telling you, it's why I believe as the NBA has turned now to this new century and we have so much more talent coming from the international and the G League and other places other than the draft, you don't really need a big three anymore. You need a superstar, you need a star, and you need a ton of role players, which is what both Miami and Denver had a year ago.
Right. And when we were talking, let me just say this. When we were talking about the big men earlier, Jokic, Embiid, Porzingis, Jared Allen, we can't just dismiss Bam Adebayo.
I mean, we can.
I think Bam Adebayo needs to be included in that discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's, like a top two, top three, center in the East, maybe, but he's not a big name. I think on a championship team, he's really a number 3. He's not a number 2, which is what I think Miami really, with all those role players last year, was phenomenal at, because they got huge contributions from Struz, from Caleb Martin, from Gabe Vincent, and the watch Bam to be that complementary role piece, which is what he should be.
Yes. I'm going to divert a little bit from what we're talking about because I want to talk about the Miami Heat specifically and the trade they made today, picking up Terry Rozier from the Charlotte Hornets. I think this is a fantastic trade for the Miami Heat. I really, really like this. I do feel bad for Kyle Lowry that he has to go to an abysmal organization in the Charlotte Hornets.
My guess is they'll probably buy him out.
Okay, fair. But I think Miami just put themselves, not that it really matters with Miami because we saw what they did last year, but by pulling off this trade, they solidified their point guard position. I think him and Jimmy Butler are going to play phenomenally off of each other. And Bam Adebayo is going to benefit from this, I think. And I really think you have to watch out for the Miami Heat now. Not that you could just ignore them before, because they were in the finals last year, and they've been in the Eastern Conference Finals like 3 of the past 4 years or whatever it is. But the Miami Heat are a legit contender now after this trade.
It's TBD for me because I need to see if Terry Rozier has that dog in him. I think at this stage in his career, he's a little bit of an upgrade over Kyle Lowry. I don't even think he's that big of an upgrade. I think he's a better scorer at this point, but I think Kyle Lowry is a really good leader. I think he's a veteran guy. He's a guy that made big plays in the playoffs. He's a big shot maker. And so can Terry Rozier replace some of that? That's the big question for me, and I don't think it moves the needle that much, in my opinion.
And then let me ask you this. What was your reaction to Pascal Siakam getting traded to the Indiana Pacers?
So my reaction to that is, Tyrese Haliburton, Pascal Siakam, obviously 2 very good players, but Indiana is at best a 5 or a 6 seed, even with those 2 guys. Again, it probably moves them from a position of like we may be a fringe playing team to probably a 5 or a 6 seed. Depending on who they draw, like the Knicks last year with the Cavs. Could they win a round? maybe, but they're not anywhere close, in my opinion, to being a championship team. They're not close to Boston, Milwaukee, Philly, Miami. I think they're pretty much right there where the Knicks were last year with Cleveland.
If I had to guess, as of right now, my top 6 would be Boston gets the 1 seed. I'm going to say Philadelphia actually moves up to the 2 seed. Milwaukee gets the 3 seed. I'm going to say Miami gets the 4 seed. Cleveland as the 5 seed. Indiana as the 6 seed. I feel pretty confident in those 6. And if you look at Indiana, they could possibly upset Milwaukee if we get that first round playoff seed. Yes.
Milwaukee, if I'll put it this way, if Milwaukee gets upset in the first round, the whole trade's a disaster. Milwaukee cannot get upset in the first round.
Oh, I agree. But look at what Indiana has done against Milwaukee so far this season.
Again, it's the regular season. Do you remember when the Nets beat the Heat like 4 times in a row that one year, and Miami came back and stomped them in the postseason?
Yes, I get it. The regular season is different, but just look at the games though. Indiana clearly matches up well against Milwaukee.
Two of those, though, were also in the in-season tournament, which some teams cared on, some teams did not. So,
sure, I hear you on that one, but I think the Pacers, if they get matched up with the Bucks in the playoffs, I think the Pacers could really give the Bucks a serious headache.
They may push them to 6, I'll give you it, but I don't think they can knock them off. I think it'd be a terrible matchup for Cleveland. I would not want to match up against Miami. To be honest, if I'm the Cavs, I probably want Indiana, with the way they're playing. I'm very nervous about our hometown Cavs when we get Darius Garland and Evan Mobley back, because I just have a feeling they're going to mess up the rotation and JP's not going to know what to do again, but we'll see.
Yeah, I don't get it. Why are we played so well without Darius Garland and Evan Mobley?
Because sometimes when you shrink the rotation and guys know their job and there's no pressure, you're a better team. We often hear the phrase sometimes, it's not all about the talent, it's about cohesion and chemistry. So, but we got to move on. We got a lot of wrestling to dive into. We're going to start off with this huge breaking news that came down today pretty much out of left field. Monday Night Raw, which has been on linear cable television since its inception in 1993. Starting next year in January 2025, will be moving to a streaming service and not Amazon Prime, Mr. Unger. Monday Night Raw for at least 5 years, if not 10, if not 20, according to however long this company wants to extend them out for, will be the exclusive property of Netflix for $5 billion.
I was extremely shocked by this announcement. I thought for sure all WWE programming was going to move to ESPN and ESPN Plus because of the partnership WWE has with the UFC now, and the fact that all UFC programming, whether it's pay-per-views, fight nights, whatever, is essentially on ESPN Plus. So I was fully expecting WWE to follow the UFC and move to ESPN. So when I saw this, I was like, wait, what? Like, I don't know about you, but I didn't hear any speculation about this coming to fruition. Did you?
Not Netflix. There was speculation around Amazon Prime a lot. That's where I thought Raw was going to land, actually. I took a look at the fact that they got the USA Network deal done with SmackDown, which was cable. Then they went to NXT. NXT's moving to the CW that's broadcast. In today's society, if you can get broadcast, cable, and streaming, a lot like the NFL is doing now, with their TV and media rights contracts, WWE has always been ahead of the curve. The WWE Network launched in 2014. They were one of, if not the first streaming service to offer full live streaming of their, pay-per-view / premium live events. They go on and they obviously sell the network to Peacock in 2021, but WWE has been very ahead of the curve on media rights. They got back into the broadcast side of things with Fox in 2019, and there's a lot of interesting reports out there. What I find fascinating is it does sound like that if you have the ad-free version of Raw, you're not going to have any commercials during the 3-hour broadcast. It sounds like the matches are going to be completely revolved around commercial breaks. It's going to have a completely new flow to the show. There is talk about making Raw TV 14, or at least as close to it as you possibly can, making it a little bit more edgy. So it's fascinating, and obviously by the money and what Nick Khan and what Triple H have done with WWE now, making it more global than ever. Fans are already used to streaming when it comes to Peacock and their streaming services. I think the most interesting part about this will be, I know Nick Khan said that as of right now, it will stay on Mondays. I'm going to be honest with you. I am not so sure that is the case.
Because of Monday Night Football and the Manning cast and all that, right?
So there's a lot to it. But I think, obviously, Raw has been on Monday since its inception, and there is something to it being tradition. But this isn't the 1990s anymore, and it's a little bit of the fact that you do have to deal with Monday Night Football. But not only do you have to deal with Monday Night Football, you have to deal with the NBA and the NHL playoffs on Monday nights. You have to deal with the NCAA College Basketball Championship, college football some nights, the MLB Home Run Derby, NFL preseason football on ESPN. There are a lot of competition where, it's mostly like this time of year, February, maybe some March, and then, probably July, that you don't have any sports competition. But for most of the year, there's a lot of steep competition on Mondays, not to mention major holidays. And I think if there's an opportunity for them to move it to even a Tuesday night, I would do it.
But if you move Raw to Tuesdays, what do you do with NXT?
I think WWE, you have two options with NXT, because I do think SmackDown's going to stay on Friday. You either move NXT to Thursdays, or there is that scenario if WWE wanted to try their hands again. You know exactly where I'm going with this.
The AEW NXT war.
I think that WWE now is in a better position to compete with AEW than they were 4 years ago. I still don't think they would win every Wednesday night. I'm going to be clear. I think AEW would still win the quote-unquote war, but I don't think it would be a complete blowout as to what the numbers have been saying about NXT slowly gaining viewership. AEW is sort of staggering in viewership, if you will. I do think this announcement, though, is a big win, not only for WWE, but it is a big win for AEW, because it means they're going to stay on Warner, and whether they decide to go with Max or a streaming service for their pay-per-views, which I think would absolutely be the right call. I told you about that now for years. They should have been doing it a couple years ago. I think AEW can win very much from the fact that Raw did not go to Warner, because I believe that was a real negotiating move from WWE.
I do too. I totally get what you're saying about AEW. But I just can't shake the fact that, like, I don't get this. Like, if you have Netflix, are you going to be able to watch Raw live, or is it?
Yes. No, you are going to be able to watch Raw live. It's going to be from 8 to 11 on Mondays. Again, for now, this could change. But Netflix has done some streaming of live shows. Right? They did a concert and something else last year.
Okay.
It's going to be just like the Peacock situation with the premium live events. There's going to be tiers to Netflix where, a lot like the premium live events, if you get the ad-free tier, you will be able to watch Monday Night Raw from 8 to 11 in its entirety live without commercials, even during matches.
Okay. It'll be interesting.
I like it. I think it's progressive. I think it's going to work. And again, from a business perspective, you get SmackDown on cable, NXT on broadcast, Raw on streaming. I think it makes perfect sense.
Oh, I do too. But I'm still a little bit surprised that they didn't do something with Disney or ESPN Plus because of the partnership with the UFC.
Yeah, I thought that, FX could be in play for Raw. I thought maybe even ABC could be in play for Raw. What I'm going to find interesting is in 2026, the Peacock deal comes up with the WWE Network. Will they move the WWE Network to Netflix as well as a part of this new partnership? That will be something to watch. I like Peacock. I know a lot of people don't want Peacock. I think we all miss the old original WWE Network. But I think Peacock's been a good host for it, but we'll see if it ends up eventually on Netflix.
Hey, speaking of Peacock,
Yeah.
we've got a premium live event coming up. There we go. We are on the road to WrestleMania as we've got the Royal Rumble going down. And as of right now, it is supposed to be like a 5 or 6 hour show. And yet we only have
it's not going to be a 5 to 6 hour show. I'm telling you that right now. This is going to be about a 4-hour max show, which I'm glad about. I think it makes sense. I think the show's going to be over by midnight Eastern. We only have 4 matches on the card,
which makes no sense to me.
See, I think it makes perfect sense, and I love it. The big focus will be on the 2 Royal Rumble matches. You don't need to overbook this card. The 2 Royal Rumble matches, the Fatal 4-Way match for the Undisputed Championship and the United States Championship, to me, fits this card just fine.
I would have put in, given the way this New Day Imperium feud is going, I would have done that tag team match on this card personally as like
a random tag team match for what? You could have put that easily on Raw, which needs more TV time than the premium live event.
Well, they've turned it into a blood feud recently, but nonetheless, let's focus on the Royal Rumble. I don't really want to. Well, actually, I do want to talk about the Fatal 4-Way, but I don't care about the Roman Reigns part of the equation. I want to focus on 2 other guys in the match. LA Knight.
Yeah.
And the phenomenal AJ Styles. If you give me that feud and that match at WrestleMania, oh hell yeah.
Yeah.
Those 2 together, like in a legit feud, not part of a Fatal 4-Way or triple threat or anything like that, and then you give me that singles match at WrestleMania, that match would be fantastic. So that's what the part of this Fatal 4-Way that I'm most interested in. How much interaction do we get between AJ Styles and LA Knight? That's really the part that's most interesting to me.
I think this is going to be a fascinating Fatal 4-Way. I cannot wait to hear the pop of Randy Orton when he hits that RKO on Roman Reigns. I'm very fascinated to see who takes the pin here. And I agree with you. I think Styles and Knight would be a great WrestleMania match. WWE has so much talent right now. I don't know if there's enough room to put those 2 guys on a singles match on the WrestleMania card with as much talent as they have right now. There is so much talent back there. People are going to miss out on WrestleMania. They shouldn't miss out. WWE's roster is as deep as it's ever been. I agree the feud would be great, but I don't know if I could book that for just a one-on-one match.
Oh, I think you could easily book that for a one-on-one match. And that if they were to do that at WrestleMania, I really think that match could steal the show. That's
I don't think that's their plan for Mania. It may be a part of their plan for Elimination Chamber in Australia, because I do think the plan is to get LA Knight, a United States Championship match at WrestleMania 40 against who I believe will be the champion, the man who will retain against Logan Paul, who will face off against Kevin Owens in what should be a very entertaining matchup.
Yes, I agree. I kind of wish it wasn't Kevin Owens in this spot. I get it, but like it feels so predictable that Logan Paul is going to win. And
I don't know about that. I think there's a scenario where you can take the belt off Paul and KO can walk into Mania as champion.
Which I would like that. But it just feels kind of like the obvious route to keep the championship on Logan Paul because of what you were just saying about most likely it being LA Knight against Logan Paul at WrestleMania for the United States Championship. But I want to get to something we saw on Monday Night Raw last night, and I want your thoughts on this. Because we saw Seth Rollins, he's talking about his knee injury and all that, and then he gets interrupted by, of all people, the Intercontinental Champion, Gunther. And as I was listening to his promo and what he was saying about Seth, I'm like, I didn't realize I wanted this match. But now that I think about it and I'm hearing what Gunther's saying, I do want to see this match. And this is going to upset you. And I don't care. I want to see Gunther versus Seth Rollins way more than CM Punk versus Seth Rollins. Get out of here with CM Punk. No, thank you.
It's cooperate time! CM Punk is about to main event WrestleMania, whether you like it or not, because the night one main event will feature CM Punk as the challenger to the World Heavyweight Champion, Seth Rollins. And then after WrestleMania, Seth Rollins will eventually move to challenge and maybe even possibly dethrone the Ring General Gunther as the Intercontinental Champion. As Gunther will then move eventually to the World Heavyweight Championship. Maybe that's the SummerSlam match. Gunther CM Punk for the World Heavyweight Championship.
I could actually see it a little bit differently. I think Gunther will not be dethroned by Seth Rollins. Instead, he will be dethroned by Yeet main event.
It's very possible.
Uso. But I'd love to see Jey Uso and Gunther both be in the Royal Rumble. But let's get to the Royal Rumble. Because last year, that's where we got the Logan Paul, Seth Rollins feud that went into WrestleMania, which I thought that feud and the match, I thought it was my personal favorite.
Well, that's because you're a Seth Rollins fan. That makes sense.
Yes, but also because I thought Logan Paul was very much able to hold his own. He was able to present himself as a legitimate threat, and it really got me interested in the match, not just because of Seth Rollins. So I give full credit to Logan Paul on that. So tell me this. What WrestleMania feuds do you think we're going to get out of the Royal Rumble? Because as I just explained, a lot of times you get WrestleMania feuds based off of interactions in the Royal Rumble. Am I wrong about that?
You're not wrong, and I'm going to give you one. The Ring General Gunther will be defending the Intercontinental Championship at WrestleMania. He will do so against the Beast Incarnate, Brock Lesnar, after they meet in the Royal Rumble match after Lesnar becomes a surprise entrant.
I get the intrigue behind that match because it's big men slapping man beat. I don't love it, though. I don't
Josh,
love
it's the last guy for Gunther to face.
Let me throw another name out there. Johnny Gargano against Gunther for the IC championship.
I'm not a Gargano guy. I don't care if he's from Cleveland. My uncle knows him. I'm not a Gargano guy. I don't think he has personality.
I would personally love to see that match, Mania, for the IC championship. I think the stylistic matchup is what makes it so intriguing to me. Is you have Gunther, who's this big, muscular guy, and Johnny Gargano, who is more of a athletic guy. I think that stylistic matchup would be so interesting at WrestleMania.
I think we may get another tease of a Rey Mysterio Dominic Mysterio match when Rey Mysterio returns in the Rumble with Dominic already in the ring.
But what do you do with Santos Escobar then?
Again, I think you can do that match at Elimination Chamber, and Santos doesn't make WrestleMania.
What do you think of the reports that maybe Hulk Hogan is going to be? You've heard about this, right?
He's not going to be in the Rumble. It was a tease. You know who Hulk Hogan was talking about?
No.
Dwayne The Rock Johnson, because it's happening. The Rock is coming back. I don't know if he's going to be in the Rumble or not. I don't. But I'm telling you right now, it's happening. The Rock and Roman Reigns is main eventing night 2 of WrestleMania. And I'm sorry to all the Cody Rhodes fans out there. Cody, you're not going to finish your story this year. You can do it in WWE 2K24, but you're not doing it in real life because The Rock is facing Roman Reigns for the Undisputed Championship in night 2 of WrestleMania.
So if you let's say they actually go down that route, which I agree with you. I think that's the match they're going to do. What do you do with Cody Rhodes then?
Well, as I wrote this week on an article of Voltage Live, a lot of you people are not going to like this, but I think you put Cody Rhodes in a multi-man match with Sami Zayn and R-Truth and The Miz against Judgment Day and Drew McIntyre, because I don't think there's another place. I don't think Cody belongs in the Punk Rollins feud. I don't think Cody is the one to face Gunther, because I think Lesnar and Gunther is the only real option out there for Lesnar. I don't see another great spot for Cody. And we've seen people. We've seen Daniel Bryan rise out of WrestleMania 30 and fall back down to the mid-card the next year. It will not kill Cody Rhodes. It just wasn't. Cody's going to have to wait another year. It's just the way it is. I'm sorry. But again, you have this match with The Rock. You cannot pass it up. And I don't think Cody really fits in another story outside of the one he's been doing with the Judgment Day.
I think the Cody Rhodes Judgment Day story should have been finished after War Games. That's my opinion, though. But
all right, we got to quickly move because we're almost on time. We got to get to the women's Rumble match real quick. I think there's 3 possible winners for this Rumble. It's going, one of them, I believe, will probably be the winner, and that is Bayley. I think that's the route they're going. Bayley will face Io, though I would like it to be a triple threat match with Dakota Kai involved if she is clear. I think you could also go the option of Becky Lynch winning the Rumble and challenging Rhea Ripley, though that might be best set up in the Elimination Chamber in Australia. And I'm going to give you a wild card here that she has not competed yet in a WWE ring.
Jade Cargill.
Former AEW wrestler Jade Cargill. What a way to debut her. Similar to the way Cody Rhodes came off as a big star when he left AEW and came back to WWE at WrestleMania with that match against Seth Rollins. What if you debut her in the Royal Rumble? She throws out 8 or so wrestlers, wins the match, and then goes on to challenge one of the women's champions at WrestleMania 40.
It definitely would be a good way to do it. My guess is before her injury, they were probably going to do Jade versus Charlotte Flair at WrestleMania, but those plans most had to change, obviously. What I'm hoping, there's a couple people I hope show up at the Royal Rumble this year from NXT. I want Roxanne Perez to be there. I wanted Cora Jade so bad.
She just got hurt, unfortunately.
I know. That's why I was so devastated, because I think Cora could have been great in the Royal Rumble, and she could have found a place on the main roster. I was so devastated about that. But Roxy, I want Lyra Valkyria in the Royal Rumble. I don't care that she's the NXT Women's Champion. You can do that anyway. I love that NXT wrestlers get to participate in the Royal Rumble, and we get to know them.
And by the way, unlike in the Vince McMahon era, they actually get shine in the Royal Rumble.
Yes.
I'm very excited for it. Can't wait to watch the show, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Peacock down there, Tropicana Field, the home of the Tampa Bay Rays. We're going to give our thoughts on it next Tuesday. Championship rings. We are done for today. Brandon Lewis, Josh Ungar, we thank all of you guys for watching. Again, make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube and follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We're here every single Tuesday night giving you the best debate in the sports world. And Josh, you got the last words.
Yes. Quick piece of baseball news. We actually had the Hall of Fame announcement tonight, which I did not realize. Congratulations to Adrian Beltre, Todd Helton, and Joe Mauer. They all got into the Hall of Fame. 3 guys who absolutely deserve it. Adrian Beltre just crushed the baseball. It felt like it was going to be a home run basically every time he came up to the plate. I don't care that Todd Helton played in Colorado. He was one of the greatest first basemen of all time. Not the greatest, one of the greatest first basemen. And I love Joe Mauer as a catcher for the Twins. He did everything for that organization. So 3 very deserving guys. Congrats to all 3.
And with that, this has been Championship Rings. Brandon Lewis, Josh Ungar. Next week, we break down everything in the championship games. We'll dive in a ton of NBA. The Pro Bowl is next week. Who cares about the Pro Bowl? And then we'll dive into all things Royal Rumble. We'll see you next Tuesday. And peace.
A salute to